This is definitely one of the hardest questions to answer. I can spend an hour talking about this. Okay, I might. So, how to get inspiration for your drinks. First few years I started bartending, Montreal, 2010. I knew nothing about it. And I mean nothing, maybe minus 100, because I never really drank that long before I started bartending. So I had no frame of reference of drinks that I tried that I can replicate. My frame of reference was foods, ingredients by themselves, and yeah, that's it. Dishes, not much. And at that time in Montreal, because we do get things a little bit delayed than a city like New York or Paris or whatever. So at that time, the El Bulli book, which is, one of the best restaurants ever, and at that time they pretty much invented molecular gastronomy. That was all the rage. So Montreal has a great food scene. So a lot of chefs were getting into that a little bit. It never took off in Montreal, even just food, molecular food never took off. But that's when I started bartending. So although I still didn't understand the basic structures of how to make drinks, and I was just learning how to bartend, those are the books that was available. I mean, getting something aside from Angostura and Orgeat almond syrup that was it. There was one shaker, one strainer, the red tip bar spoon. That was a culture of drinking. There was a decent amount of product, but not that much. There wasn't a lot of books. It started getting there in the States. But in Montreal, that was the most accessible thing. And I really remember it. There was a little kit that everyone was giving away as Christmas gift, even to people who are not bartenders. And it was a molecular kit. It showed you how to make the little caviar, the reverse verification. And I think it showed you how to make foams maybe. And it had the little syringe. And so obviously I bought that. And I was trying to do that. But I had no frame of reference, no basic knowledge about cocktails. And I didn't know what to draw inspiration. I was just trying to copy things. Now, copying will only get you a little bit of the way for you to see if you're interested enough to continuing this. Then what happened is I was working at a Brazilian restaurant as a waiter. And every time I would finish my shift, most of the team, we would go downtown Montreal. And there was 2 bars there, and now that I think about it, they were pretty basic, but they were pretty consistent. And the drinks were always, like, at that time, for me, was one of the most amazing things. And I remember one time I saw some recipes. Someone infused Angostura bitters, which everyone knows, with ginger pieces inside. And that was like life-changing for me. You took ginger, you put in Angostura, and now that person was just going to put Angostura in a classic cocktail that has Angostura in it. Remember, at that time, no one is like teaching you stuff. YouTube doesn't have, oh, here's how to switch your old-fashioned and make a ginger-infused old-fashioned. Like, there was none of this. And I was just wondering, how did that person come up with this? So I use my, yeah, that's a train. So I use my nose more than my tongue, especially that I didn't drink before. So it wasn't about the taste of certain alcohols. So at that time, again, without any basic cocktail structures, no basic training, no classics training, I would go to the pharmacy. I would go to the shampoo aisle, and I would smell the shampoos and the lotions and the bath bubble lotions and whatever. And I would read the ingredients, and I would be like, this smells great. It has peach and lavender. I'm sure that peach and lavender would work great in a cocktail. That was the first way I was I wouldn't even call it inspiration, but I guess it is, because I saw something that I was trying to replicate in a drink form. And that's how I got my first recipes. They were all shit still. I realized a few months after, maybe a year or two after, why. I would taste or smell something great, and I would use the same ingredient in a cocktail, and it still doesn't work, which I'll get to. I'll get to now. The main reason is that I didn't know the basic formulas of how cocktails should work. I didn't know the balance of it. I didn't know peach and lavender. How can I put it in a cocktail? Should it be in a stirred cocktail? Should it be in a whiskey cocktail? Should it be in a Manhattan? Should it be in a sour? I didn't know. I tried. So that's commendable to try. But I realized that I needed to go back from just trying to find interesting flavor combos and not worry about inspiration and just worry about, can I make just the normal drink? Not a peach lavender. Can I make a whiskey sour? And I know so many people say this, but I think the delivery is wrong. Like, I don't want to tell bartenders, hey, the classic is the most important. Classic is important to start. It's okay that you stir off of them later and you go in your own direction, but you have to master those first. I don't think classic cocktails are the best tasting ones, always. Some of them are, but a lot of them, I bought all the pre-prohibition books, and a lot of those cocktails are horrible. But I did them, I made them, I tasted them. I saw why I thought it was horrible. I learned that the palate back then was different. I learned that things were sweeter. I learned that they didn't have ice until 20 years after the first book came out. So you just still need to do it. I learned all the basic drinks, all the classic drinks, but I learned why they were made that way. Now the second layer would be learning how to cook. If I want to do a peach lavender, and now I have enough knowledge to be like, when I made a whiskey sour, I feel that it's a recipe that can take on the flavor of peach lavender. Okay, that's the first step. Now, how am I going to put it? I don't just put peaches in lavender in a shaker. I always hated using a muddler. I'll say this, a muddler for me is only used for a caipirinha, which is the first cocktail that I ever learned how to make by a Brazilian lady at the first Brazilian restaurant I worked at. Otherwise, blender, toss. I don't make salads, I don't make purees, I'm not making salsas, I'm not grinding spices, I make cocktails. They need to be clean. They have different textures, but not because of the muddling. You cannot control muddling. So if I put lavender, which, if a lavender flower comes into your mouth, that's not a fun thing. Yeah, you can double strain it, but how can you extract the flavor you want from the lavender in a shaker? You can't. So then you have to know, do I infuse the peaches? Do I make lavender tea and then make it into a syrup? Do I put the lavender in the whiskey and make peach puree? That's where you need now to cook, and you need to learn how to cook. So that's kind of the layers that you need to go through to get inspiration. That's the basic one. Now, where did I get inspiration after that? I would get inspiration from dishes that I ate. That would be the one where I steered away from regular flavor combos, like, I keep saying peach and lavender, but I don't know, basil and raspberry. I knew that I didn't want to do that. If I'm making cocktails, I want it to be a little bit more than what people are used to. So I'm not going to go to the shampoo aisle again. So what am I going to do? I ate so much food. I travel a lot. I want to travel even more. At that time, I was, pretty poor in a sense, but every dollar I made was either going for me to taste things or for me to travel. And that created a library of memories in my mind of smells, experiences, tastes, dishes, Also, we have the internet. I mean, even if I heard about a dish that I didn't eat, but I ate maybe the component separately, I can just go and read the history about that dish and see why people used it. And then you go on the rabbit hole talking about corn and how many varieties of corn. And I'm like, corn in cocktails, how can I use it? Okay, I need to know how to cook it. How did people cook it? And inspiration comes from there. So I can give you guys so many ideas about cocktail recipes, cocktail concept that you can work on. But let's focus on the first thing, knowing how to make all classic cocktail formulas, all of them, sours, egg white sours, long drink, short drink, stirred Manhattan, old-fashioned Negronis. Why do we throw a drink? Why do we shake a drink? All of that needs to be fully embedded in your DNA as a bartender. And then let's know how to cook. Let's learn how to cook, how to process ingredients. Can this one be boiled? Maybe, I mean, boiled cucumbers? No. So you need to learn about the ingredients themselves. So then you know, oh, this would be great into an infusion. This would be great into a tea that then I'll make into syrup. This would be great into a puree. This would be great into a cordial. Like, you need to know that. And then the inspiration, I think, comes from you just doing it so many times and you just being out there and going to so many bars and restaurants. With whatever means you can afford, there's always a way. That would be the short answer for this. But I'm sure we'll talk more about inspiration. I hope this one helps about how I started to find inspiration. Let's cut it here for this one, and we'll talk about it more.